I know, I'm thinking.
Oh, because I'm sure.
Hello, Eddie. I want to thank everybody for joining me for today's update. We have a number of different items. The first item is something I'm very, very excited about. And as you can see, this is a little bit unusual because the First Lady is here. Susan, thank you for joining us. And I also have some wonderful leaders in Arkansas behind me that will be introduced at a little bit later time. Next year marks the 50th anniversary of the last Women's Commission in Arkansas. It also marks the 25th anniversary of the Women's Foundation in Arkansas. And the Women's Foundation contacted me and made a recommendation that I am responding to today. But as everyone knows, in my administration, women are an essential part of our leadership team. From chiefs of staff to cabinet secretaries, I have relied upon the women in leadership positions to bring success to my administration. But we are the 50th anniversary of the 1973 Commission, which will be next year, and that's the last commission that actually gave us a report. And so today, I'm pleased to announce that I am creating the Arkansas Commission on the Status of Women in Arkansas. This commission will be chaired by my Chief of Staff, Allison Williams. She has been a role model and continues to be a role model in leadership in the state. But she is passionate about removing barriers to women in the workplace and ensuring their success has no limits. For those who might not know, Allison has been on my leadership team in Congress, at the DEA, at Homeland Security after 9/11. She's been in leadership positions in the private sector, and of course she's been key as my Chief of Staff in this administration. I'm delighted that Allison is willing to serve the state as chair of this important commission. Throughout our state's history, there's been 4 commissions focusing on women. The first was that created by Governor Orville Faubus in 1964 to focus on the social, political, and economic status of women. Following that commission, Governor Rockefeller established another to focus on state employment laws and differences in legal treatment between men and women. In 1973, Governor Bumpers reinstated the commission to find ways in which women could become larger participants in economic, political, and social institutions. And then in 1975, Governor Pryor instituted a commission. It did not issue a report. The commission that I am instituting today will be composed of 14 members, which I will make appointments, but they'll also have membership designated by the leaders of the House and Senate, and we welcome all of their participation. I'm asking the commission by executive order that I'll be signing today to focus on a few major issues. First, to study and analyze labor force participation in Arkansas by women, including single mothers and the effect of the COVID pandemic. Secondly, to review labor force participation rates specifically in the emerging and high-demand career paths such as STEM and entrepreneurship. And then thirdly, to examine the barriers of entry into labor force participation for Arkansas women, including single moms, on issues such as child care. I consider this commission to do very important work for our state, It will make recommendations to myself and to the General Assembly on ways to eliminate the barriers to entering the labor force and to participating in the success that we all want in our life and in our careers. It will also provide an overview of the child care economy in our state, which I see as very important. I'm asking this commission to give a final report from this group no later than December 1 of this year. With that, I want to invite my chief, Allison, to come and to introduce the commissioners. Allison.
Thank you, Governor. This is truly an honor. Before I introduce the women and a man who was on the commission, I want to note that in the last 50 years, a lot has changed in Arkansas. The last commission report noted that in 1973, women's earnings were about 60% those of men here in the state. Today, that number is 80%, a significant increase, but not parity. And in 1973, there were only 5% of the governor's cabinet officials who are women. Governor, I'm proud to say that you have increased that percentage significantly with the number of 6 of your 15 secretaries being women. Of course, despite these gains, there is still much to do, and COVID has highlighted the need to address these persistent challenges. The Women's Foundation of Arkansas has done significant work in this and many other areas for the last 2 decades, and that work has accelerated in the last 5 years. From Girls of Promise that focus on bringing more girls into STEM careers, to providing entrepreneurial support and capital to women-owned businesses through the Women's Economic Mobility Hub, to the Tawana Bird Summer Internship Program, the WFA lives its mission to increase the economic viability of women and girls in Arkansas. As the governor mentioned, this commission will develop actionable recommendations for the General Assembly and the governor to consider, and I'm delighted to have WFA as our partner. With that, I want to note that Jill Floyd is here as the president of the WFA board, not a member of the commission, but as a member of our partnership. Jill, thank you for being here. And I know we have some of them behind me and some of them not, but Gayatri Agnew from Bentonville, Melly Bridewell from Lake Village, Dr. Sharice Childers from here in Little Rock, Tamika Edwards from Little Rock, Marie Holder from Little Rock, Dr. Sharice Jones Branch from Jonesboro, Kim Lane of Conway, Heather Larkin of Little Rock, Kathy Lloyd of Jonesboro, Beverly Morrow of Pine Bluff, Dr. Veronica Salazar of Arkadelphia, and Dr. Todd Shields of Fayetteville. And we are not going to let any moment go to waste, Governor. Our first meeting will be next Tuesday morning, and we look forward to presenting a report in December. Thank you.
Let's give all the new commissioners a round of applause. Thank you all. Thank you. And with that, I'll let you all step aside there. The second point that I wanted to make today, or announcement, is that today I'm announcing a COLA increase for state employees and state agencies of 2%. A little bit of history here. The law allows the governor to award an increase of 2% if the chief fiscal officer has certified that sufficient general revenues are available for that purpose. That certification has been made to me, and I've never awarded this particular COLA increase. The last award was in 2012. We generally do the merit increases. This is a 2% COLA increase, but I see this as absolutely necessary in light of the inflationary pressures that they're all experiencing, and because of their extraordinary work coming out of this pandemic. This will be funded through the Performance Fund or the the different departments by general revenues as needed. And the 2% increase in pay will be reflected in the paycheck on February 25th of this year, with the current pay period starting February 6th. And so that will go into effect very quickly, and we wanted to make sure that all the state employees were aware of that. Then thirdly, let me ask Secretary Johnny Key to come forward. And I did want to also recognize Representative Charlene Fite, who's been an advocate for the school for the deaf and the blind, and thank you for being here, and our administrator that's here as well. And so let me make this, and I'll ask Johnny to make comments, but the Arkansas School for the Deaf and the Arkansas School for the Blind are state-sponsored schools that provide necessary services for students all around the state. They're in very close proximity to one another, and they often share facilities. Today, I'm announcing the disbursement of 2 tranches of funds from the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Funding. These are called GEARS funding. It's Governor's discretionary funds in which we're allocating $6 million for improvements at the School for the Deaf and School for the Blind. $2 million of this funding will be used to replace water lines across both campuses, as well as replace the power grid. $4 million will be utilized to construct a new health services building. Very important, a new health services building to serve both campuses. And this new facility will house clinical health and wellness services for students and staff. It will include audiology, ophthalmology, optometry, and wellness services. And this will really be helpful in meeting the specialized needs of these students. This project is scheduled to be done by September of 2023. But Secretary Key, I know you've been an advocate for the school for some time, and this is very important to you, and so please make your comments.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for making these funds available. The students at the Arkansas School for the Blind and Arkansas School for the Deaf are extraordinary students. They have extraordinary faculty, and these students also have extraordinary needs. And this is an extraordinary history for these 2 campuses that we have, and this significant improvement in investment, capital investment in these campuses is going to really bring up the infrastructure on the campus to a more modern state, and that's a good place to start. And now with the $4 million for the new health center, more modern ability to take care of these students and their health care needs. Dr. Janet Dickinson, I appreciate the leadership that she provides for the deaf school campus, and Mr. James Caton, who could not be with us today as superintendent of the blind school, but they are doing great work on these campuses, and really appreciate the governor taking the effort to use these funds, dedicate these funds for these very important activities on the campus. Also want to express thanks for partnership through Central Arkansas Water and with Entergy, because without those 2 organizations helping us with the planning, with the construction, with all the elements that it'll take to get this done, would be very difficult to accomplish on our own. Again, thank you, Governor, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to that.
Thank you, and Dr. Dickinson, thank you. With that, let me go to today's COVID report. I invite Dr. Jennifer Dillahay to join me, and we'll have a little bit of news as we go through this as well. But first, let's go to the graphic that will give us where we are in our cases. As you can see, we have an increase of 1,149 cases in the last 24 hours. Our active cases continue to go down. Very sadly that we see 45 deaths, and again, that is the result of the high cases that we've had over the last month. If you'll go to the next one, we'll see that this is a good news piece, that our vaccination went up 4,000. We gave out 4,000 doses in the last 24 hours, which is a big jump from what we've seen in the last few days. And so we've had an additional 1,000 of Arkansans fully immunized. So to all the Arkansans out there, thank you for understanding the importance of it, the difference it makes to our state and to our community and individuals. And then we can see that our hospitalizations have gone down 73, which is a big drop, and those on ventilators as well. And then we wanted to break down, I asked the Department of Health to break down the deaths, because that's, we've had over 10,000 deaths in Arkansas due to COVID, and I wanted at least a breakdown of what's happened recently. So these are those who have died in the last month as of February 16th. So within the last month, you can see that we've had 619 total deaths. Of that, 467 or 75% were of the age of 65 plus. Just another emphasis on that's the most vulnerable population, and we need to continue to work to increase those vaccination rates in that age group particularly. But then you have 124, 45 to 64. You can see the breakdown, but that I know people have asked about where those deaths are coming from and different specifics on it, and this should be instructive. Next, we'll see the trend line, and you can see that we are getting down to where it was lower than in almost at the beginning of Omicron, not quite there yet. We want to get that hopefully as low as possible, but the trend line continues to go down. And then one that I always like to show is simply that the middle one is hospitalizations, that 80% of those hospitalized have not been fully vaccinated. On the deaths on the right side, 80% of those deaths that we've been reporting have not been fully vaccinated, and that should be sufficient room and reason to go ahead and get your first shots, get your booster shots as well. Then finally, because of where we are and the fact that we've been at this 2 years and the fact that we have been reporting on this daily, but the information flow is will continue through the Department of Health. And so each day, anyone that's interested can go to the Department of Health and get the same information on cases, hospitalization, deaths, all of the trend lines from the Department of Health. But we're going to be giving our COVID update once a week. So we're going to move to once a week on COVID updates, and Dr. Romero and I said when the hospitalizations go below 1,000, we're going to make that jump. And you see that below 1,000, the trend line looks good, and if we have to change it down the road, we will, but we're being very transparent for 2 years. We'll continue that transparency. It's easy to get that off the Department of Health website, but in terms of our daily reporting, we want to leave that to the Department of Health, except for my weekly report. With that, Dr. Delahaye, you'll get the last word.
Thank you, Governor. I'd like to take this opportunity to strongly encourage people to not back off on the vaccinations at this point. We need people to be fully vaccinated as well as boosted. It's important to know that of the data that the governor showed for the age groups, the 18 through 24 and the 25 through 44, no one who died in those age groups was fully vaccinated and boosted. And then for the 45 through 64 and the 65 and older, only a small proportion of those folks who died in those age groups were fully vaccinated and boosted. Last Friday, the CDC changed their guidance for booster doses. People may now get their booster dose as early as 3 months after they receive their primary vaccination series, so that makes it a little faster for people to become fully vaccinated and boosted. So I strongly encourage people to do that so that we're ready if we have another surge. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Delahaye. And with that, we'll be happy to take any questions.
In the House yesterday, the Arkansas PBS budget, the appropriation bill, failed by a pretty big margin. Are you concerned at all about that budget being in jeopardy at this point? Are you talking with legislators? And secondly, I want to see what you thought about the Texas-style abortion bans failing in the Senate and being tabled. Are you hoping that that issue is done with, or are you concerned that that might get wrapped up with debate over appropriations?
First on AETN, I think they've done a really good job of modernizing the PBS Arkansas broadcast. And in terms of the budget, I would fully expect the General Assembly to do their responsibility and to pass the necessary appropriations for that important state contribution to that. It's not fully funded, but it's a significant contribution to Arkansas PBS. And I know that different members use a hold for various reasons. We respect that, but in the end, I expect that to pass, and I would certainly ask them to pass that budget. In terms of the Texas-style enforcement mechanism, this is a fiscal session which should reserve the legislation under our Constitution to to budget matters, and that would be outside the purview of that. And then secondly, I think there's a lot of wisdom in how the House and Senate have handled this, understanding that as pro-life as we are, we're the #1 pro-life state, but at this point, wisdom dictates that we should get additional guidance from the Supreme Court, which without any doubt will be coming by June of this year, based upon the Mississippi case that's on appeal. And so we will wait for that guidance and make judgments as necessary. And I think that was the thinking of the General Assembly.
Just to clarify on what you were saying about the COVID updates, the Health Department is still going to be releasing numbers each day, but it's just not going to come through the governor's office. Is that what you're saying? Or?
That's correct.
Okay.
And so every citizen can go to the Department of Health. They'll have that information on their website, and it just won't be done in a graphic form like we're presenting daily that I have through my own social media post.
One other thing I wanted to ask about, there were some vaccine mandates that have started to take effect at UAMS and some other state entities. Do you think those have been effective in increasing the number of people who are vaccinated? And are you still concerned that that could create staffing issues at those entities?
Well, I can't speak to UAMS. They'll have to address that separately, but I can speak to different state entities managed by the Department of Human Services, our care facilities, our human development centers, that the vaccination rates have increased dramatically, and they've worked very hard. But we've also had an effective exemption policy in place, which is important for the General Assembly, but it's historically been true in Arkansas that religious exemption or a medical exemption can be claimed, and so that process has worked fairly smoothly. We still have more time before the final cutoff time frame is set, but I've been very concerned about losing employees, but we've been working very hard with our employees, with our vaccination program, and hopefully in the end that'll have a reduced impact in terms of lost employees. We don't want to lose any. We're working hard to keep them.
Does it cause you to reconsider being opposed to vaccine mandates generally, or how do you reconcile those?
No, I mean, I just wrote a letter to the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada and to the President of the United States saying they need to lift the vaccine requirement for cross-border travelers, truck drivers. And so I've consistently said we need to give the private sector the authority to make decisions for their workplace, but this is not a time for government mandates, and I think that's been proven ill-advised by the courts that have held most of the mandates unconstitutional. And in terms of the state, clearly if you have a mandate, the vaccination rate will go up some, but it's at what cost, and is it necessary, and what resistance does that build out in society? We're seeing our vaccination rate go up, and I don't believe it's because of mandates. It's because of more education, and people are not feeling the pressure of government, but they're making the right decision for themselves. Any other questions?
the 2% COLA for state employees, that's just executive branch employees?
That's correct. So that would not include the independent agencies, would not, so it would be the agencies that report to me.
So how much is that going to cost, and does that mean they won't, is that in lieu of a merit raise, or are they still potentially going to get a merit raise?
It is not in lieu of a merit raise, so that still is, would be handled in the normal way in consideration of that time frame. So this is a special one-time COLA raise because of the cost, the inflationary impacts, and then and in terms of the cost, we'll have to get that to you, the specific cost of that, and that will be absorbed by their state agency budgets. If there's a shortfall, we have a performance fund that can cover that. Yes.
Is there an expected completion date for the upgrades at the Arkansas School of the Deaf and the Blind? And I guess how long is expecting for construction of the new medical center?
Secretary Key, do you have that?
The limitations on these funds are September of 2023, and we expect to have this project, all these projects completed by then.
Is there any questions remotely?
Yes, Governor. Brett Rains, 4029 News. Do you have any additional information regarding the deaths that you spoke of, said due to COVID-19? Do we know, are those people who tested positive for COVID-19, were their deaths caused by COVID-19 or complications? Can you expand on that, please?
I'll ask Dr. Dillahay. I want to make sure I get that right, but these are deaths that in which the cause of death is COVID or it is a contributing cause of death. That is the standard that we've followed, and so the deaths that are being reported meet that standard. Did I say it right? Yeah. I got it. Okay. Next question.
This is Mike Wilson with 5 News. I know earlier this week during the State of the State, you did get interrupted by protesters and about the prison expansion. And you said it's because our state is simply growing. I spoke with one of those protesters. She said, just because our state is growing doesn't mean you should criminalize our people. We should really put efforts and money into mental health efforts. Did you just think any thoughts on that?
Well, I think I got the gist of the question. And so the need for expanded prison space can simply be explained because we have 2,300 state prisoners in county jails that we don't have room for. So it's not reflecting a change in incarceration policy. It's reflecting the fact that we don't have any place to put our prisoners now, and we need that kind of space. We want to eliminate that backup. In terms of mental health services and other needs that our prisoners have, but also those that are in reentry programs, there's always more to do there, but we have invested reentry programs. We've invested on the front end on drug treatment courts. I announced that we're going to be funding 2 additional drug courts, which are alternatives to incarceration. So you can do 2 things at the same time: provides alternatives to incarceration, rehabilitation efforts, mental health services, and at the same time not have this backup in the county jails, which is the reason we're expanding that space. Thank you very much for your attention to these important announcements today, and I would like to invite our commissioners back to the podium. I would like to have a picture with you before we adjourn today. Thank you very much.